Good day, my little robins. It's me, Beth. Another week has passed, which means you get another video from, well, me here on this channel. If you haven't already read the title, 2019 is coming to an end, so this is around the time of the year where I bring you my top 10 so-and-sos of the year. If you haven't already read today's video, today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top gigs of 2019. I have seen a lot of bands live in 2019, probably not as many as in 2018. So this list was still kind of hard to make. I'm really just naming, my top 10 and then some honourable mentions. Enough rambling, let's begin. But before we begin, you can click subscribe and tap that bell to be notified of when I upload on this channel. Yeah, let's just dive straight into my top gigs of 2019. Coming in at number 10 is Escape the Fate with The World Is Ours 10th Anniversary Tour. The reason this made it onto the list is because it was very nostalgic for me. This album, The World Is Ours, was one of the first albums I actually listened to by Escape the Fate in high school. I was obsessed with it, so it was a very nostalgic trip. The set list was amazing. I went with Kate, who is my flatmate. And it was so nice, especially when you go see an album tour and they just play like the album in full, track for track. It was, Escape the Fate. These boys have grown and changed their sound over the years. They're not so emo anymore, but if you get a chance to see them, holy hell, they know how to put on a show. Coming in at number 9, yeah, that is 9, is In Flames with the The Mask Tour. In Flames, for me, have always been a band. I've got the beanie. You've seen me wear this a lot throughout the year. They've been a band on my bucket list for a long time, and I finally got to see them. For me, it was one of their standout albums. Most people don't like the albums like post-2006, 2007, but I'm a fan. I really liked it. This was at the O2 Ritz, which is one of my favourite venues. Again, I went with Kate, and it was nice because even though it was an album tour, they did some fan service because literally they played the most popular singles off the The Mask album, and the rest of the set list pretty much was like a, hey guys, we've been around a few years. We know there are some people in the audience who have only recently got into us, so we'll play some songs for them. But then, we'll also go back to our roots and play some songs off the first couple of albums, which was a pleasant surprise no one in the audience was expecting. In Flames. That night was so good. Kate and I got on the balcony, so we weren't getting squished in the pit. We had an amazing view. I actually reviewed it on my channel, so, you can check out my tour reviews at the end of this video. Coming in at number 8 is Avatar with Avatar Country Tour. This band, again, I've already reviewed it, so if you want to know my full opinion, you can go check out the playlist at the end of this video. I will leave a link. They had over the top staging, over the top themes. Oh my god, when I heard the song Tower played live, I actually shed a little tear. I went to this with John, and he's not really a big Avatar fan, but I think he came out of it being like, okay, these guys know how to put on a show. Watch my, full tour review to know my full opinion. Coming in at number 7 is Behemoth. I saw these guys again with John. This was a very intense show start to finish. Like In Flames, they were a bucket list band that I finally got to tick off the list. I actually lost John at the start. As soon as they started playing, he handed me his phone and like his wallet, and he just ran into the pit, and I didn't see him for like the entire set. So I just stood there holding my stuff and his stuff. It was a good night. We made some friends in the pub beforehand. We've been drinking since like 3 in the afternoon, so we were both a little bit tipsy. Everyone was a little bit tipsy, but yes. Behemoth. Staging, lighting, sound, set list. See these guys live. Coming in at number 6 is Beyond the Black and the Heart of the Hurricane Tour. Jennifer, she is one of like the standout female vocalists, within the metal scene, within like the power, symphonic, gothic metal subgenres. They had like a 20+ set list. They had a really nice acoustic set. Again, I've actually reviewed them in a video, so if you want to know my full thoughts and opinions, go check that out. I don't really want to rehash it in case, you know, you've already seen that video, but yeah, it was amazing. It was in a small venue. It was in Rebellion in Manchester. It was very intimate, and I do love a good intimate show. Coming in at number 5 is Lacuna Coil and the Black Animator. It was so nice, you know, again, to finally tick these guys off, you know, the band bucket list. And it's so interesting when you've got a band who have been around 20+ years, that, you know, they actually didn't play that many songs off the Black Anima album, despite it being a tour album. They kind of showcased their, like, 20+ year history, and it was safe to say that you kind of forget that when a band's been around a really long time, when they start playing, like, songs from, like, the early 2000s, late 90s, and you stand there and go, okay, they've had some amazing songs. Like, every album by Lacuna Coil is good. There's always a few gems, there's always a few highlights. It was pretty clear to me when I was standing there that everyone in the crowd was equally amazed. It was one of those nights that I definitely will remember. I will remember being at that Lacuna Coil gig, and I would happily, you know, go see them again. I really liked the Black Anima album, so the fact they didn't play more songs for an album tour kind of disappointed me. But they did play some of my favourite songs off previous albums, which more than made up for it. These guys, again, they know what they're doing. When you've got a band who have been around a long time, like some of the bands on, like, this list that I am, like, giving to you guys, they know how to put on a stage show, they know how to sound good, they know the lighting, they know all the cues to get the audience going, and as a fan, you know, I really appreciated the effort they put in. Coming in at number 4 is Hollywood Undead. This is the second time I have seen these guys. First time around I went on my own. This time around they came to Liverpool, and I got to relive Hollywood Undead with my high school best friend Becky, who moved to Liverpool. It was her first Hollywood Undead gig, so I kind of felt like I had to guide her in the right direction, but we both drunk a lot before going there, and then we drank a lot in the venue. So I think she was a little bit like, oh, I don't really want to be in the middle, I don't really want to be in the pit. But in my tipsy state, I just grabbed her arm, was like, don't let go, and we ran in. And I woke up with bruises the next day. It's one of those gigs where you get bruises in places and you're trying to remember how you got those bruises. It was amazing energy, it was an amazing set list, and they played at the Guild, which is actually like the student union for Uni of Liverpool. It was a pretty big venue. I've seen a couple of bands there over the years, and it's pretty impressive in size. Hollywood Undead, you can't go wrong with them. I love my boys, and it was an amazing night. Coming in at number 3 is the Rasmus and the Dead Letters Anniversary Tour. For me, Dead Letters is my favourite Rasmus album, and not just because it has the infamous In the Shadows song on, but when you actually go listen to that album in full, and they did perform it, you know, track for track, you're like, oh my case, some of their most popular songs came from that album. Rasmus are more than a one-hit wonder in my eyes. I've been a massive fan over the years. I saw their Dark Matters tour. If you get a chance to see the Rasmus, just go in, knowing they will play In the Shadows at some point, but just get lost in like the atmosphere. The crowd was amazing. They had like a 20+ song set list. The first songs, I believe like the first 10 or 11 songs were, you know, the Dead Letters album, and then the final 10 songs, they pretty much turned it on their head. And I think before the tour started, they actually asked the fans, what are some of your guys' favourite songs? And the final 10 songs were songs that were picked by the fans, and I was genuinely surprised, you know, that they kind of spanned across all their albums. There wasn't like a certain album that got a lot of love, which I liked, which means that they are more than just In the Shadows. It's a great song, it was a great night, I shed a tear or two. I am girl enough to admit that I cried a little. I was on my own. The cider might have had some sort of influence in that, but again, it's one of those shows that, like, 10 years time, I'm going to be like, I was there. Oh, you might not like the Rasmus. I understand they're not for everyone, but for me, every time this band tours, I'm going to go see them live. Coming in my number 2 spot is Ice Nine Kills and the Silver Scream Tour. If you already watched, or last year you watched my top 10 albums of 2018, The Silver Scream was my second favourite album of the year. I love Ice Nine Kills, I love this album, I love their theming. It was based around, you know, classic horror movies. And I've got to give Spencer and the rest of the band props for like their many costume changes throughout the night. Again, it was in a very small, intimate venue, so there was a lot of like shoulder to shoulder. You got to know the person you were standing next to. I woke up the next day having lost my voice singing, screaming and growling. My neck was a little stiff, I think, from like being jolted around. But yeah, Ice Nine Kills. For me, again, bucket list band, I can, you know, tick them off. Before we get into who claimed my number 1 spot, we've got to talk about my honourable mentions of the year. There were 3 gigs that made it into my honourable mentions. The first one was Enter Shikari. I saw them in Liverpool. It would have been a great night, but for me, the crowd ruined the experience. They were very drunk. It just wasn't a good crowd. But Enter Shikari were amazing. The crowd ruined it for me. Number 2 is Motionless in White. Again, childhood favourite band. But there were a lot of gigs I have seen in 2019 that kind of surpass it. And, you know, number 3 is Poets of the Fall. Like Motionless in White, I really liked it. There were a lot of standout moments, amazing songs. But December gigs, I saw both these gigs within like 3 days of each other at the start of December, and they always have like a tough job, you know, cracking into like a top 10 of the year, because for me there were so many more gigs that were more memorable for me. Not to say that Poets of the Fall or Motionless in White were bad, they just got like the rough end because they kind of came in December when I'm trying to already make my mind up about this list, so yeah, they were my honourable mentions. Don't kill me in the comments. And claiming my number 1 top gig of 2019 is Camelot and the Shadow Theory Tour. Camelot are one of my favourite like power metal, symphonic metal bands. It was an amazing set list. I love the Shadow Theory, the album. They didn't just play songs off that album, you know, they kind of told like a story. It had a narrative. I've actually reviewed it, so you can go check out my tour review at the end of the video with a few of these other bands that have been in this video. For me though, I'm just going to say this is what cemented it as my number 1. It was the best value for my money over the year. That's why it made my number 1 spot. You had an amazing main band who put on an amazing show, but you also had 2 amazing supporting acts. You had Evergrey, who I have seen open for Delane, and you had one of my favourites, Visions of Atlantis. It was great value because you got 3 amazing bands. You then had Clementine from Visions of Atlantis actually duetted on a couple of Camelot songs. You also had Lauren Hart from Once Human. She was like a guest vocalist that was just touring with Camelot, so best value for money by far. It was an amazing night start to finish, but for me it felt like it was the perfect package, and it's definitely a night that I'm going to look back on and be like, yes, I was there. Camelot slayed, Visions of Atlantis slayed, and Evergrey slayed. So, quite frankly, a win-win all around. So there we have it, guys and girls of the internet. Those were just my top gigs of 2019. I hope you guys liked it and maybe learned something new about me and my music taste. In the comments below, I'd love to know some of your guys' favourite gigs of 2019, or even the decade, since 2019 is sadly coming to an end. Sorry, I had to get that cough out. I've wanted to do it for like the last few minutes. Finally got it out. Start a conversation. I would love to hear some of the bands that have kind of like stuck in your head this year, or like I just said, over the past decade. Comments, comment, like, subscribe. Again, if you want to support me and the channel in the future, you can by clicking like to show me some love. You can click subscribe because, well, nothing's stopping you, and I do try and upload weekly. You can check out my last 2 videos or playlist right here, depending on what mood I'm in when I'm editing this. Like my sign says, keep listening to good music. 2019 has been a good year for music. That outro, I have nailed it over this year. I'm Beth. Goodbye.